Welcome back to another episode of I Wish They Knew, a show where we share big ideas that deserve more attention in about the time it takes to enjoy a cup of coffee. I'm Joe Hirsch. Today's wish comes from Laura Hamill. Laura is an organizational psychologist and the owner of the Paris Phoenix Group, a consulting firm specializing in driving impactful research and outcomes. Who wouldn't want more of that? Previously, she was the co-founder of Limeade, an employee experience software company where she held the dual roles of chief people officer and chief science officer. Hey, two is better than one. And before that, she worked at Microsoft as their director of people research. Are you sensing a theme? Laura hosts the Happy at Work podcast and is also the author of a great book that she wrote with The Economist, The Power of Culture. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. Can't wait to dig into culture with you today.
Yeah.
What do you wish more people knew?
I wish more people knew that culture and power go hand in hand. Many leaders just don't understand the impact that they're having on organizational culture. And that happens in a couple different ways. I think first off, they don't understand that they really need to be the drivers of culture, and they tend to give culture work to HR or to employees from a good perspective, like, hey, you employees, you know more about what's really going on than I do, so let me have you tell me what we should do. And the problem with that is there are reasons why people in positions of power are really the ones that we look to when we're learning about culture. So if you think about when you start in a new organization and start working there, you can really clearly see the culture. But slowly over time, right, we learn about the culture so much so that we can't even see it anymore. You've heard the analogy of, do goldfish know they're swimming in water, right?
Yeah, you're stuck inside the jar. You can't read the label.
You're right, exactly. I love that one. I don't know if I've heard that one. That's really good. So that is how we kind of learn over time. And there's a lot of different inputs to that. But one of the biggest inputs is we look to people who've made it in the system. And people who are in positions of power are sort of the ultimate people who've made it, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking to people in leadership roles to say, oh, well, they figured this out. So let me really observe what you're doing.
But they're not
So
owning it for the rest of the people,
they're not
and they're
owning it.
abandoning that responsibility.
That's right. And
Yeah.
they're not embracing the opportunity to really shape the culture and say, oh, yeah, I want us to go this way or go that way. And they also don't understand that they're missing opportunities all day long to emphasize what really matters.
So they're the front lines of culture building. You call them culture architects in your book, which is a great book. What are some of the things that they should be doing on a regular basis to promote this culture first workplace?
Those are the people who feel a connection to their job as a culture architect. Like they really are excited about the fact that if I can help people understand why this kind of culture is so important and how it's going to help our business and what it really looks like, that this is going to be the difference maker for our company, right? This is going to be what's going to help us be successful. And so people who fundamentally get that and really feel it, those are the ones who are true culture architects. I like to think that there's a part of culture work that's very linear and very logical and very analytical, and there is. But there's also a big part of being a culture architect and doing the culture work that's about emotion and connection and belonging and inspiration. And it's those people who understand that both are required are also really great culture architects. Kind of, it's the hearts and minds kind of idea. I've been an organizational psychologist for 30 years. And in the beginning, probably the first half of my career, I was very much the linear person, right? Like it's all about science, it's all about research. How can we make this very logical? And there's a lot of goodness to that. But what I think really makes a great culture architect is somebody who also understands the more emotional component of culture and how we help people feel that connection. So culture architects are the ones who really embody the work and want to talk about it and want to do that hearts and minds combination.
What would you say to a leader who would come back to you and say, "This sounds great. Culture, eat strategy for breakfast, and I would love a culture where we're all bought into our core values." But honestly, my job as the leader is to make sure that we're meeting our objectives, that we're delivering on time, that we are going to hit our forecasts. And I honestly don't have time to spend time on culture building.
So I would say, are you having any problems with those things that you just said? Because if you are, it's probably because of your culture. So you don't not have time for culture. A lot of leaders sort of think it's an HR thing. When things are great, let's have a party and let's have some drinks, but really missing the connection between what we're trying to achieve as a business and how we are together, how we act together, how we support each other during that work. Are we all really clear about what's important here? Or are we all doing different things? Or maybe some things that actually might be working against the ability for this business to be successful. So if you have any kind of concern about what's going on with the success of your business, I would probably could point to culture being at the root of it.
How do leaders communicate this and make sure that those cultural signals are resounding loudly and clearly? I mean, you walk into some workplaces and they're awash with culture signals, but they seem almost like part of the background.
The thing that I think is really interesting about culture and corporations and organizations now is every organization knows they're supposed to have values, right? So it's very rare that you wouldn't find an organization that doesn't have values or principles or guiding something, right? The problem is most of them keep them on their website or keep them at really cool sticker behind the receptionist desk, and they think that that's where the work ends. The really hard work comes after. And that's, how do you actually embody this? How do we make sure, we were kind of talking about this before, how do we make sure that we're living it, that the human beings that are in this organization are demonstrating these values? But then how do we also make sure we embed it in everything that we do? It becomes part of our language. It becomes part of how we think about hiring people. It becomes part of how we think about onboarding. It's how we think about doing strategic planning. It's all embedded in any big decision that we make. What we fundamentally value is part of the ongoing daily conversation. And it's great to have swag. It's great to have values on your website, but that really doesn't mean squat, really. What really means something is, in the day to day, behind closed doors, are people really clear about what matters in this organization? And are they doing the things that are really in support of them?
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard work. It takes a long time, and it takes a lot of intention, and it takes a culture architect who is driving this all the time and really describing the why.
Talk about how we might create more meaningful measures around this culture. That's always hard for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the places to start is to think about being really clear about what our values are, how we define them, what do they look like behaviorally. If you have that down and you've connected it to what you're trying to do as a business, you connect it to your strategy or your ultimate purpose, some really clear connection, then to me, that's easy to go measure, right? Then what we can do is we can start thinking about, ooh, wouldn't this be interesting to have leadership 360s against the behaviors and see, do leaders actually demonstrate these things? Wouldn't it be amazing to put some questions in our employee survey and say, hey, to what extent are all of our employees living each of our values, and learn which of those values is kind of stronger or less strong in the culture? What's the accountability towards those? If we really believe that we need to change those measures, that the improvement on these measures is important, maybe there's some way we're connecting this to leader bonus. So the having measures is really important. Linking it to some sort of accountability outcome would also be a great thing too.
So not just to recognize it, but to reward it as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm wondering about a case where you have a high performing team member who's not living the values, but is producing. If you really do hold yourself to a high standard of, here's what our culture is, the answer to that would be very obvious. But for many leaders, it's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's just such a classic example, right? And I think that employees can see right through that. They know if what you say you want this culture to be is real, not only by the fact that people are demonstrating it, but by the fact of you let people get away with not demonstrating it. I think that you lose so much traction around all the good work you're doing with culture if you let one person, especially somebody in a position of power, get away with working against the culture. And so it's like, what's more important here? This bigger, longer term effort to create a culture that's aligned and that's helping us be successful, or having this one person kind of eke through. So it's a really important message that gets sent by what we put up with in organizations.
Yeah, you can't just live the values, you have to live by them as well.
Yeah, that's so good. I like that.
The book is The Power of Culture, and the author, and I think she made a pretty powerful case for culture today, is Laura Hamill. Laura, thanks for sharing your wish with us today.
Thanks so much, Joe.